By now, you know what a voice is. So the voice is that form of a verb that helps us to determine whether the subject of the verb is the doer or agent of the action denoted by the verb or not. Now, voices are of two types, active and passive. In the active voice, the subject is the doer of the action, whereas in the passive voice, the subject is the receiver of the action. Till now, in all the examples, we have seen how to change a sentence in the active voice to its passive voice. Today, we are going to learn how to change a sentence in the passive voice to its active voice. The chocolate was eaten by Jane. Now, in this sentence, we can see that this is in passive voice. Was eaten is the passive form of the verb eat. Now, if we have to change this sentence to its active voice, how are we going to do? So, once again here, we have to change the position of the subject and the object. So, what is our subject here? The chocolate. So, the chocolate will go to the object position in the active voice. So, the sentence will become Jane ate the chocolate. So, what do we see? This is the doer, Jane. Doer becomes the subject in active voice. So, Jane is placed in the subject position. Now, was eaten. So, this form of be verb was shows us that it is in the simple past tense. So, we need to use the simple past tense form of the verb eat, which is ate. After that, what will be the object? The receiver of the action. Now, the receiver is the subject in the passive voice. So, this moves to the object position in active voice. So, what is our sentence? Jane ate the chocolate. So, what do we note? The doer becomes the subject in the active voice. This is Jane the doer, the subject in active voice. The subject in passive voice becomes the object in active voice. So, this was the subject in passive voice. It becomes the object in the active voice. Then, the verb form changes. So, in passive, we have this form, be plus past participle. This changes in the active voice to simply ate, the simple past tense form. The preposition is removed. So, here we have used the preposition by before the doer. Now, in the active voice, we do not need that preposition anymore. A game of chess was being played between the two friends. Now, this is once again a sentence in passive voice. So, how do we write it in the active voice? It will be the two friends were playing a game of chess. Now, first let us find out the doer from the passive voice. Who is the doer here? So, the verb is was being played. So, who were playing? The two friends. So, the two friends becomes the subject in active voice. Now, what is the verb in the passive voice? Was being played. Now, this being is telling us that we have to use a continuous form of the verb, and was tells us that it is past tense. So, the verb in the active voice should be of past continuous tense. Now, the main verb is played. We have to use the past continuous form of the verb play. So, that is were playing. So, the two friends were playing. Now, we need the object. So, how do we find the object? It is easy because the object in active voice is the subject in passive voice. So, a game of chess is the subject here. So, it will become the object in active voice. So, our sentence becomes the two friends were playing a game of chess. Now, we have also said that the verb will always agree with the subject. Here, what do we see? Since the game of chess, here game was a singular noun. So, we have used a singular verb. But when I say the two friends, I have a plural subject. So, here I have used a plural verb were. So the subject-verb agreement is also very important. A brief lecture was given to the students by the professor. Now, if we have to change this sentence into the active voice, how do we write? We can write it as the professor gave a brief lecture to the students. So here, what do we see? Was given is our verb in the passive voice. And who is the doer? The professor. So the doer becomes the subject in active voice. So I begin my sentence with the professor. Then the verb is was given. Now given is the past participle form of the verb give and was is the past tense of the be verb. So we need a simple past tense form of the verb give, which is gave. Now we have to find out the object. What is the object here? We see that a brief lecture is an object in this case because this was the receiver in the passive voice. So we add a brief lecture and then to the students. Now there is another way we could have written this. How? The professor gave the students a brief lecture. So you will notice from here that this verb gave has two objects, a brief lecture and the students. We can write this part after the verb followed by a brief lecture. So both of them are correct ways of writing. We can either write the indirect object after the verb and then the direct object, or we can write the direct object first and then the indirect object. Now, here we need to note another thing. If instead of this sentence, a brief lecture was given to the students by the professor, the sentence would have been, the students were given a brief lecture by the professor, then also we could have changed it into active voice by these two sentences. So, for both these sentences in the passive voice, the active voice will remain the same. So it is just that the object has changed the position. We know for a sentence which takes two objects, we can change it in two ways in the passive voice. That is exactly what has happened here. The red flower must have been plucked by the little child. Now this is once again a sentence in the passive voice. To change it to active, we would write it as the little child must have plucked the red flower. So how do we do it? First, we need to find out the doer of the verb. Must have been plucked is our verb in the passive voice. Now who is the doer? The little child. So the little child becomes our subject in the active voice. Now must have been plucked. Whenever we have a modal, we keep it as it is. The modal never changes with the voice. Now look at the rest of the verb. Have been plucked. So here, been is telling us that it is in the perfect tense. Now whether it is in the past or in the present or in the future tense is determined by this part. Have tells us that it is in the present tense. So it is a present perfect tense. So in the active voice, what will be our present perfect form? Have plucked. Now what is the object? We simply put the subject of the passive voice after the verb. So the red flower becomes the object. By whom was the letter written? Now this is a question. Now for question in passive voice, how do we change it in the active voice? So in active voice, we are going to write it as who wrote the letter. So here, what do? First, we have this doer at the beginning. By whom? Now whom is in the object position. When it comes in the subject position, whom turns into who. After that, the verb is was written. That is the past form of the verb be and the past participle form of the verb write. So it will be wrote. And what is the object? The letter. So whenever we change an interrogative sentence from passive to active, it will still remain an interrogative sentence. Holi is celebrated as a festival of colors. Now here in this sentence, what do we see? There is no doer present in the sentence. So how do we change it in the active voice? Now who is celebrating? It is celebrated by people in general. So while writing it in the active voice, we can take the subject as people. Then we can change the verb form. Is celebrated. Is tells us that we need a simple present tense form of the verb celebrate, which will be celebrate, because we have taken people as our subject. So the subject becomes plural. So we need a plural verb. Then what is celebrated? Holi. So Holi is the subject here in passive voice. It will become the object in the active voice. And then the rest of the sentence, as a festival of colors, is written. Now look at these two sentences. In the first sentence we have the line is drawn with a ruler. Is drawn tells us that this sentence is in the passive voice. Now there is another sentence. The teacher was pleased with his sincerity. Here too, was pleased is telling us that this sentence is in the passive voice. Now let us see how we can change these two sentences to active voice. So here what have we written? A ruler draws the line. And in this one, his sincerity pleased the teacher. Now, in this case, the teacher was pleased with his sincerity. So here when I write his sincerity pleased the teacher, this makes sense because was pleased turns to pleased. Now, what pleased the teacher? His sincerity. So this becomes the subject as well as the doer of the verb pleased. And it is followed by the object, the teacher, because in this sentence, who was pleased? So the receiver of the action was the teacher. That becomes the object in active voice. Now come to this sentence. The line is drawn with a ruler. If I write it as a ruler draws the line, it sounds absurd. A ruler cannot draw a line. It is always a person who draws the line. In this case, ruler is a tool that is used to draw the line. The ruler itself does not perform the action of drawing the line. So this is not the correct way of writing the sentence in active voice. So what should be the sentence? It should be he draws the line with a ruler. Now, in place of he, you could have written any pronoun, as in everybody draws the line with a ruler. He, she, they, anything could have been the subject in this case, because the line is drawn with a ruler by whom that part is not mentioned. So here the doer is not important. Now draws, because the verb is drawn, we change it to draws in the simple present tense. Then the line. So the line is the subject here, becomes the object here, and this part with the ruler remains as it is. Remember, here with the ruler is not the doer of the action. So in both the cases, what do we see? We have a prepositional phrase with a ruler, with his sincerity, but in one case it is just a tool and not the doer of the action, whereas in the other case it is the doer of the action. So in such cases we have to be very careful in identifying the doer. The bouquet was gifted with love. How do I write it in the active voice? I write it as Somebody gifted the bouquet with love. So the bouquet was gifted with love. Once again we see that the doer is not mentioned. Because it is unknown, we can place somebody as our subject. Then was gifted changes to gifted, and then the object, which is the subject in the passive voice, followed with the rest of the sentence with love. So the sentence becomes somebody gifted the bouquet with love. Now, if the sentence would have been the bouquet was gifted by Reshmi. So in this case, what will be our sentence in the active voice? The sentence will be Reshmi gifted the bouquet. So here we see by Reshmi. So Reshmi is the doer, hence it becomes the subject in the active voice. Then gifted and then the bouquet. In both these sentences in the passive voice, you see the bouquet was gifted. This part is common to both. In one we have with love, and in one we have by Reshmi. When we have by Reshmi, the doer is indicated, but when we have with love, the doer is not indicated. So whenever you see a preposition, you must be able to identify whether that preposition is followed by the doer or not. The puppy got frightened by the noise of the crackers. Now, how do I change this sentence to active voice? I'm going to write it as the noise of the crackers frightened the puppy. Now here, what do we see? First, the verb is got frightened. So what is the doer here? The noise of the crackers. So the noise of the crackers comes as the subject. Now the verb is got frightened. Now here what do we see? We do not have the be verb. Instead we have the get verb. Here got is in the past tense. So we need a past tense form of the verb frightened in our active voice. So the simple past tense of frighten is frightened, and then we have the object. So the puppy is the subject in passive voice. It becomes the object in active voice. Dickie was not much perturbed by the situation. Now here we have a negative sentence. We see the use of the word not. So in such cases, how do we change it into active voice? It becomes the situation did not perturb Dickie much. Now here we need to note certain things carefully. First, what is the doer? The situation. So you write it as the subject. Now the verb is was not perturbed. Now was not perturbed turns into did not perturb. Why? Because whenever you have such negative sentences, you will note the use of word do. Now since the be verb is in the past tense, we have used the past tense form of the do verb, which is did. After that we have written not. Now after auxiliary do verb, we always write the base form of the verb and never any other tense form. So here we have written did already. So we simply write the base form perturb, and after that we write the object. So who is the object? Dickie will be our object in the active voice, and then we write this much at the end. We shall be welcomed by the seniors of the college. Now, how do I change this to active voice? Well, the sentence will be the seniors of the college will welcome us. So let us see what changes have taken place. First, we find out the doer, which is the seniors of the college. So the seniors of the college comes as the subject. Now we need the verb. So what is the verb here? Shall be welcomed. Now we know that the modal shall is used for first person only. Here we have we as the subject, so we have used shall. But what is our subject here? The seniors of the college. So instead of shall, we are going to use the modal will. Then the verb form is be welcomed. Now shall be tells us that the be verb is in the future tense. So we need a simple future tense in the active voice. So that will be will, welcome. Now the subject in the passive voice is we. We is a pronoun in the subject position. Now this we is going to be placed in the object position in active voice. So instead of we are going to use the object pronoun us. So the sentence becomes, the seniors of the college will welcome us. So now that you know how to change the sentence from active to passive and from passive to active, I am sure you should be comfortable with the voices. So you can take up more examples related to voices and see if you can change the voices correctly. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. You can also register for free at DeltaStep.com or download the DeltaStep app to get all learning resources as per ICSE, CBSE, IB, Cambridge or any other curriculum. Over 5,000 amazing lectures across maths, science, English and social science. Our unique interactive video technology keeps you engaged and our iDictionary feature allows you to quickly revise any concept. Master each topic at your own pace with our adaptive practice technology and 1 million plus questions. Get instant answers and detailed solutions. Be exam ready by taking unlimited mock tests. Performance analysis along with actionable feedback. Personal tutors to resolve your slightest of doubts. That's not all. You can also win amazing prizes like PlayStation, iPad, watches and many more along with certificates through our Earn As You Learn program. So at DeltaStep, learning is not just fun and easy, it is rewarding too. So register for free now.